as most of you know who read any of the news, this Friday there's a summit, eyeball-to-eyeball meeting between Mr. Putin and Mr. Trump in Alaska, which Trump apparently keeps calling Russia, which it used to be, and it was sold by them for a very small sum, probably their biggest mistake in their history. But nonetheless, it's a moment of truth because the proxy war has pretty much ended in the imminent collapse of the proxy state. And now there is no way to avoid the hegemon declaring either for peace or direct war. And it's very difficult to imagine the collapsing hegemon and all of its collapsing vassal states choosing peace when they have basically suicided their own economies and alienated most of the world and produced a terminally ill situation for the civilization as a whole, which has fallen to such a low level of consciousness that the kind of statesmanship, let alone the kind of healthy cultural background or strength of the countries involved to face their own karmic consequences of their past behavior, I don't think is there, and therefore literal defenses and offenses are the likely product of this meeting that could produce some very rapid escalation of tension and of military activity, as well as of collapse of the financial system. So at that level, because most egos are prone to increases of anxiety under such conditions, and the civil unrest and the coming apart of the institutions of the society that have been taken for granted, including the infrastructure, the food supplies, the medical supplies, etc., will all be affected, and this is bound to produce even further augmentations of anxiety among the majority of the population that are already suffering extreme conditions. And so it's a time when it is valuable to come out of denial and to awaken to the full extent, not simply of world conditions, but of our true nature as the conscious dreamers of this dream, and to receive the wisdom and the power to redream the dream as a manifestation of beauty and harmony and peace and love and joy, which is now nearly absent from the world configuration. So that's basically the context in which all of our retreats are given, but in particular these upcoming ones, to provide an immediate level of spiritual support that may not be available from any other source. So that's the reason for that, but also, of course, all of the teachings of Sat Yoga are aimed at the overcoming of anxiety, really. In fact, I consider an ashram to be a spiritual rehab center for those who want to recover from anxiety and its sequelae, its karmic consequences in terms of mental and physical disorders and karmic crashes, etc. So, for that reason, I'm going to continue reading in this recent text that we have been going through of the Ashtavakra Samhita, largely because, of course, synchronicitously, the text we'll read tonight that we've reached in the book is extremely relevant to the understanding of the solution, the final solution to anxiety. So, if I'm correct, we're at about chapter 12. And so I'm going to read it's not very long, but I think it's useful to apply these ancient teachings to our current situation. They have entitled the chapter, Abiding in the Self. That's not its original title, but that's what they've given it in this translation. So this is the student of Ashtavakra, who is the king, King Janak, who is speaking, answering questions of the teacher in previous chapters. Janak says, and I'm going to correct the translation, but I'll read it first. I became intolerant first of physical action, then of extensive speech, and then of thought. Thus, therefore, do I firmly abide. Now, the word in Sanskrit is not really intolerant, and so that's not an accurate translation. It's not about tolerance. It's unrelated to, no longer interested in, detached from any interest in the character's activity in the world. So, in other words, the fate of the body in the world, which is the obsessive concern of the narcissistic ego, is of no concern for the liberated sage. And that is very difficult to grok from within the ego, how that is even possible. And it may seem that it's not until one reaches that state. And so he says, first, one becomes unrelated to the behavior of the body form, and then of its words, and its, I would say not only its verbal speech, but its self-talk, the stories it tells itself mentally. But then of thought, but here I think rather than thought, the idea he's trying to get at is then when one becomes completely detached from any identity. And so when the consciousness is in its pure state, before your body received a name from the parents and received the input, I would even say the invasive input of the projections of the big other in the form of mother, father, family system, and then the social system that the family is relating to and preparing the child for entry into, etc. That initial construct that remains at the core of the ego, one becomes completely disidentified from it again. And he says, thus I firmly abide, but the word is not firm. It's, I truly abide would be a better, it's an authentic realization. And because it is truth that is realized, it's not something that is intermittent or forgettable. It becomes a constant presence. It is constant presence. And so in the second shloka, he says, having no attachment for sound or other sense objects, and the self, capital S, not being an object of perception, my mind is freed from distraction and is one-pointed. Thus, therefore, do I truly abide. So no attachment for sound or other sense objects. It's a very interesting state. In other words, the liberated sage is not obsessed with music, with art, with the production of cultural objects. The soul has gone through that. The soul understands all of that, but the soul is done. There's no more need to produce or to enjoy effects that occur within the dream field, because now one is enjoying the intelligence of the dreamer that so far transcends any possible manifestation in the form of artistry or of philosophical insight, that even the highest level of thought or of beauty or of ethical responsibility, all of those are already transcended in the state of complete freedom and fulfillment that wants nothing. So in the third shloka, he goes on to describe that state. He says, an effort has to be made for concentration only when there is distraction of mind owing to superimposition, etc. I'll go into that. Seeing this to be the rule, thus do I truly abide. In other words, the state of self-realization must be recognized completely as your true nature, your eternal nature that's never lost. And therefore, that you are not the character concentrating in order to realize the self, but you are the self no longer interested in the character.